Worldwide markets this week, second brain, how to store, remember, and use all that data that gets flung at us all day, every day. I'm Simon Brown. This is Worldwide Markets, episode 649 for 24 September. I recorded this last week. I am currently on the beach. This is not going to be about markets because I don't know what's happening on markets. So I'm looking at reviewing a process that I use to manage that flood of data that we constantly get. I'll walk through how I do it, what I do, and how it all fits together. And then send me feedback, send me thoughts, send me ideas as to what you are doing and using. Worldwide Markets, powered by Standard Bank Global Markets, Retail, and Shift, the global money app that puts travel, shopping, payments, and investments in the palm of your hand. Enjoy the cheapest forex rates anytime, anywhere. Shift, powered by Standard Bank. As always, thanks to Shift, thanks to Standard Bank for sponsoring the show. So let's start with just a simple fact for humans. Our brains are really good at making decisions. Now, to be clear, it's not always the right decision. Go read the Thinking Fast and Slow book. We will often make poor decisions, but making decisions in terms of looking at a menu, what to eat, which cereal to buy at the supermarket, route to take to work or somewhere, whatever the case may be, what drink we're going to have while we're watching the Box beat the All Blacks. So those sort of decisions, our brains are quite good at. We come to it quite quickly, and it largely works. As I said, go read Thinking Fast and Slow. There's a whole bunch there which says, hang on a second. But there's a second part which our brain is not so great at. And that is around remembering, around storing data, about being able to get that data. I mean, we look up at fascination with people who've got, really good memories. I have built systems for my brain over many decades to try and remember better, to try and store things and able to retrieve them with varying degrees of success. I mean, one of the things that's absolutely worked for me is I take handwritten notes. Now, I happen to be using a digital note-taking device, but they're still handwritten. I get a pen, I can write on the screen, and that works incredibly well for our brain in terms of remembering. All the research done with students, those who type into a laptop versus those who write into a digital note taker or a piece of paper, works better. But it's still not, frankly, very great. And there's another trick to it, which is just, how do we manage all of that data? For me, yes, I can do it a bit, but there's also so much more is coming at us these days than 10 years ago, 20, 30, 40 years ago. How do we store it? How do we manage it? One of my giant challenges was to-do lists. I tried all the apps. I tried little note papers. I tried everything around to-do lists, and nothing worked. What worked eventually for me was I used my calendar as a to-do list. So, for example, recording this, it was on my calendar. Hey, don't forget to record the Second Brain podcast. Those sort of things there. But if I've got to buy, milk and whiskey this afternoon, it's in my calendar. If I've got to make a phone call, it goes into my calendar. Now, it makes my calendar immensely messy, but it does mean I have a single repository for everything, which includes, my radio shows, my TV shows, a copy I have to write, all of that sort of stuff. But I manage my to-do list that way. And that works well for me. That calendar has absolutely solved my problem of managing a to-do list. But the problem I was having, and we've all been there, we see something, it's absolutely brilliant. We, take a photo and it's on our phone or whatever the case is. We try and remember and we simply don't. So that's what I'm going to look at today. And there was something that I read. It was a book I read. I read it probably actually about a year ago. It's called Building a Second Brain. Diego Forte wrote it. The book's not bad. It's a great book. I love the concept. I've got it here. I'm going to go through it with you folks today as to how we build that second brain. But he took the logic that, we're actually really, really bad at this, and we need to get smarter at getting that information, storing it, distilling it, using it, expressing it, etc., etc. There's a lot. If you go, you will find hundreds of different points and data points around this, websites, videos, courses, the whole shang bang. I haven't done any of that. I read the book. I've watched 1 or 2 videos. I used the core tenets of his system, and then I moved on and sort of did it on my own. So the core tenets of this system is para and code. Para, P-A-R-A, and then code exactly as you would expect it. So para is the first part of the process, and para stands for projects, areas, resources, and archive. But I want to step back just a second, because how are we doing this? Cut. And as you're finding pieces of information, we take them and we put them into these 4 areas. I'm going to come to how we organize and sort. I happen to use Evernote, but we'll touch on that in a bit. But it's as you're clipping data, as you're seeing things, and to the point being is I will take a photo of something and I'll quickly save it and then come back and put it into one of these 4 categories. I will find something I want to read. I will find a website that's interesting, a presentation, a YouTube video. It might just be something that somebody said, and I'll craft a quick note. So the 4 areas are projects, areas, resources, and archives. Projects are things that you are currently working on. So, for example, I've got a Power Hour presentation, Investing Like Warren Buffett, on 16 October. How's that for a sneaky segue to get that in? Anyway, I've got that happening next month. So I've got a fair idea of what I'm going to be doing, but I'm also out there and hunting and looking for more information and quotes and thoughts and ideas. And as I'm finding that, it goes into my project. This is a current project that I have. Other current projects, and some of them are repetitive. My MoneyWeb Now morning show. It's a daily show, but it's an ongoing project. It's still going to be a project. As I'm finding potential guests, things I want to talk about, I'm sticking it into the project space. Areas are more broader, more general things. You know, for example, camping. My wife and I have been going camping, so I see something around that. Well, it pops into there. It's not necessarily a project. The trip I'm on right now was a project, but the more broader concept of areas of interest are where those sort of go. So, you know, stuff around, new tech perhaps might go into there. Kodak have got a really great little $30 camera. It's like their disposables from the 80s. These days it's digital. I store it into there because how am I going to remember? Resources is, I got to say, the one that I sort of still struggle with. And this is sort of just general stuff. You read a great piece. Maybe it was an article, a book, or something. You stick it into resources. It's not a narrow area you focused on. It's not a current project that you're working on. It's just resources. It's something that you want to be able to remember. And then the last one is archive. And archive is quite simply the everything that then ends up in archive. I tend to move things through either the project's areas, resources, and then once utilized, I either delete or I send it to archive. So I don't always send it to archive. Sometimes I just delete, but I'm then sending it to archive and using it there. The second part is what we call code. And this is a case of, okay, now we've got this stuff. What are we going to do with it? What's the plan now? And code is capture, organize, distill, and express. So how do we capture it? How do we organize it? It's then the distilling it, because you've got all this data. You've now starting to save things. Your second brain is working, and now you need to distill it, think about it, and then ultimately express it. That expressing it might be an email. It might be a presentation. It might be, in my case, a podcast or an article, whatever the case is around that expressing. Now, I use Evernote, and I got to say, Evernote is clunky. I don't think it's the best thing out there right now, but it solves my problem. And I'm on the paid version. I'm not even sure if the free version is very functional these days. But what I like with Evernote and what it works for me, and I'll touch on some alternatives in a moment. What I like with Evernote, and that does say get Evernote for free, but I tried to use the free and it just wasn't functional, is that it sits on my laptop, it sits on my phone, it sits on my black and white e-ink reader, it can sit on my iPad. Evernote is everywhere in my life. And I'm somewhere and I see something, it's like, ooh, and I grab a photo. Snap, got the photo, we off to the races. And now it's stored. I see an article I want to read, a presentation, anything. I just clip it with Evernote, and then it's into Evernote. And that's the capture part. And that works very, very well. Then I need to organize it. So a couple of times a week, I don't know, 2-3 times a week maybe, I sit down usually in the morning at studio before my show because that just happens to work well for me. I sit down and I spend literally a couple of minutes taking everything that I've picked up over, from Evernote and putting and sorting it, organizing it into my projects, areas, resources, and archive, so that there is a nice and clear area. I use notebooks within the Evernote experience, and I can put anything into Evernote. The only thing I can't do is handwritten notes. So I then I write them on my tablet here, and I then just sync them across to Evernote, or I literally do them on a piece of paper, take a photo, and then stick it in. So you've got the capture, you've got the organize, and that is great. That is one thing Evernote does do well, is the capture and the organize. And then it's around the distill and the express. There are others. I tried Obsidian. It was way more than I needed. There's Notion. I've used Raindrop, raindrop.io, which is, it captures as well. But Raindrop was a little more limited in what it could do. But it was, make no mistake, Raindrop was an absolutely great app. But I wanted that extra flexibility. I wanted to be able to take the photo within Evernote. I wanted to be able to type up a quick couple of lines of something I've thought within Evernote and keep it there nice and simply installed. So what I've found it does and how it's really worked for me, and as I said, I've spent a lot of time over the years thinking and reading about how we learn. At the heart, I'm a teacher, and a big part of that how we learn was, well, how do we get the information back? How do we get it back? Which is why I talk around handwritten notes as opposed to typed notes. And they can be, as I said, digitally handwritten, but it's just that connection between the brain that's so important. What this does for me is it does two things. It allows me, it almost takes pressure off me in a sense, because I don't have to remember. I know that it's in my system. I know that it exists out there and it's in my Evernote. I've captured it. I'll find it. I will distill it. Sometimes I do, as my Evernote fills up, I struggle a bit to find something. I'm like, you know what? On Saturday, I saw something. I took a photo. What was it? Or not so much if it was Saturday. In January, I was somewhere and I was in Cape Town at the V&A and I took a picture of something. What was it? And you can go and try and use timestamps and the like, and that works within reasons. Sometimes that's a bit of a challenge. But it kind of takes that stress off forgetting or not remembering. It takes the stress of a camera roll on my phone that is just full of things I've grabbed and screenshotted and kind of just sit there randomly and you never go back to them. And this is an important part of the process, is that I've really leaned into it. I'm putting in that time and effort. I'm doing, 2, 3, maybe sometimes even 4 times a week, going and organizing all the bits of information. And then importantly, going back to it. So, what I do for my show, for example, is on Friday mornings, I just go and look at the MoneyWeb Now section within in Evernote. Is there anything there that I wanted to do? We've done it, delete it. Anything there that I wanted to do that I need to speak to my producer around so that it happens? And it gives me that space. And for example, the Warren Buffett Power Hour, at this point in time, with it, call it 4 weeks away, as I'm recording, not as you're listening, I'm still in the thinking stage. I'm not yet crafting it. I've got an idea of what I want to say, how I want to script it and everything, but it's still in that collection stage. And then I'll get to the part where I will do the distill and then ultimately the express, which will be the event itself. In terms of Evernote, as I say, there's tons of ways of doing it. That's just my preferred. And let's be clear, Evernote is a clunky piece of software. But you know what? It works for me. And I like the multi-syncing between everything. And the fee, I think was it $600 or $700 for a year, so it's not too bad. Really like that part of it. And just like the ability to nicely capture things, keep them aside, and ultimately use my brain for what it's good at, making decisions, and what my brain isn't great at, storage, will pass that off onto my second brain. Give me your thoughts. Give me have you got ideas and hacks? Drop them in the comments, hit a reply. Let me know how you are managing this, because, it's not new. This has been something forever and a day. It's just perhaps two things in the current 2025 world is that we are so surrounded with tons and tons of data, but we've also got tools such as Evernote and cameras and, digital notebooks, etc., that we can use. So give thoughts. As I said, for me, it starts in a calendar. That's where I do my to-do list, and then it all goes in, ultimately, everything else goes into Evernote. It then gets sort of distilled and organized, and then ultimately it comes out at the other end as actual works in process. And sometimes that express is, bought a new piece of tech or something for the car or camping equipment, whatever the case may be, a recipe, something like that. Worldwide markets, powered by Standard Bank Global Markets, Retail, and Shift, the global money app that puts travel, shopping, payments, and investments in the palm of your hand. Enjoy the cheapest forex rates anytime, anywhere. Shift, powered by Standard Bank. That's me for this week. Normal service will resume next week. And then, of course, it is a mad rush to the end of the year. Next Wednesday is 1st of October. So now it is that mad rush to 16 December when the holidays start. What's that? 10 weeks, 11 weeks. It's going to be wild. It's going to be fun. Hopefully, markets can carry on going higher. I'm Simon Brown. We'll chat again next week. As always, look after yourself. And if you can, look after somebody else as well. Cheers all.